XP and Carbonite 4 mate. I'm at 1.2 million GP. I'm facing 3 or 4 million GP. I just have no chance to win. I'm okay if that's one account like that, but it's been my 6th match like that. It's irritating. Every single other player in the entire game is doing the exact same thing you are, Robert. Every single other player. Like, I'm 5 million, and, you know, I'm facing 7, 7.8, 7.7, 7.5. I'm losing too. Like, I finally got to the maximum possible climb. All of the cheap and slimy and super imaginative GAC shenanigans that I've been pulling to beat people that I should have no business beating using fucking Sun Tzu Art of War tactics, like, eventually, no matter how good you are, you will never beat people with so much more GP, so many more teams than you. Like, it's literally impossible. You know what I mean? So, especially in 3v3. 3v3 is worse because in 5v5, you can punch up. Like, I could beat 8 mil in 5v5. I could probably beat 6 GL in 5v5 with my 1 Galactic Legend, right? But in 3v3, the meta shifts so astronomically in favor of pay to win that you just have to suffer for a month and hope that they don't make it a regular thing. There will definitely be a mass exodus of, especially endgame players, but probably a lot of new players too, if they keep the fucking 5v5, 3v3, 5v5, 3v3. Like, if they keep going back to that old cadence that they used to have before they made the wise decision of never having 3v3 come back. GAC is basically pointless for a lot. It just turns into, like, a raid that just takes forever, you know what I mean? Like, you participate to get rewards, and that's about it. And that's kind of what they're turning GAC into with this system, unfortunately. But how on earth do accounts in 5 mil GP end up in Carbonite 4? Do they just don't care? It's a combination of they don't care, they're bad, or they're doing it on purpose. So, like, for my case, in Kyber 3, Kyber 4, when I hop back and forth, what the players are doing at the 7, 7.7, 7.8 million GP range is they're intentionally losing to stay in Kyber 4 or Kyber 3 as opposed to Kyber 2 or Kyber 1 so that they can maximize. If you win your first, lose second, win third, and then win 2 out of 3 for the next 2 and then go 3 of 3 in week 4, you can stay in the same division and not climb very far, and you can maximize your crystal earnings without climbing so far that you hit the point where I'm at where you're going to lose over and over again. Which is one of the main reasons why I really hate the matchmaking system, is because you can deliberately like fucking sandbag your GAC wins to maximize your crystals. And like normally when people do shit like this and like I don't know, Fleet Arena or whatever, like in GAC there used to be a feat, like I don't know how many of you guys fucking remember feats. A lot of you guys are probably new players. Your ranking in GAC used to be based on not just your GAC banners, like the banners you get in GAC, but also feats that you complete. So if you wanted to be number 1 of your division, in number 1 in Kyber, which is something that I always went for, you had to do feats. But I hated feats, so I never went. So you'd only ever get to like 200, 300 because the people who grind feats. So what people would do is they would sandbag Fleet Arena to get all of the feats in GAC where you had to like win a fleet battle without calling it a reinforcement. And at the top end, you know, if you're competing for first in Fleet Arena, you obviously can't do that because everyone's. But if you sandbag and go down, you could maximize your non-reinforcement fleet battles, get those feats, climb higher in the ranks, right? So you could sandbag GAC. But that was just for clout, right? That was just people, like, being schlimos for clout. Now there's rewards, and the people who are being schlimos are actively messing with the only good way for a lot of non-spending players to get the premium currency, right? Like, yes, it's a blessing that they're giving us so many more crystals now because of GAC, but also it's opened Pandora's box for all of the people who are sandbagging and doing all of this other stuff. So we're still getting more crystals. It's just it comes with a much higher degree of frustration from the player base because they've created a system that's poorly managed, monitored, and easily exploitable for a lot of people. So I don't know. It's one of those things where, like, yeah, I get the frustration. The first 5 months that it was out, I complained every single time about how terrible GAC matchmaking was. I think I've just become callous to it at this point. Like, if I get a 6.5, 6 million GP roster, like, yeah, it's not fair, but I can win those, right? In 5v5, 3v3, there's no chance. But when you get to, like, the 7, 7.7, you really have no chance. Like, I didn't really play the last 2 GACs because there's just no point, right? Like, I got my 670 banners or my 60 banners or whatever, and I backed out. And a lot of other content creators even, and a lot of people who are messaging me on Discord, Patreon, and chat, comment section, wherever, they're saying the same thing. Excuse me. Because the way they have the system now is there's a hard cap to how much fun you can have, right? They basically punish you for being really good. Like, being pretty good, like, you're fine. But when you're really good, which I'm sure a lot of you guys in the chat right now are really good players, you're finding the point where, you know, it's not fun anymore because, you know, you are disincentivized to try every single time. You are literally, like, crystal outcome. You are literally decentivized. Ugh. It's a hard word for me to pronounce, apparently. You're disincentivized to try and win every single Grand Arena because it will lead to you losing more, but also because you're losing more, you will get less crystals. So in a game where, like, the rush to the core 8, your first GL, your first executor, getting all of the stuff that you need to have a dominant roster is dependent largely on using, you know, crystals to buy these Gear 12 plus pieces, right? Like, you know, buying all this shit. You're going to be progressing slower as a better player, which is kind of stupid. And a lot of people are going to get put on, like, APGAINS. If you're truly trying to be an absolute greaseball and win every single possible match, like the days of the APGAINS OG YouTube channel 2.5 years ago were like, grind for 144 and we got to like 137 and then forgot to place ships and we're mathematically eliminated and I wanted to fucking jump off a bridge. Like, those days of crazy win streaks can't exist outside of end game whales because the system has no protection for good players, right? And the first couple months, like, if you're new to the system, like if you haven't been doing this for a long time and you haven't become numb to the system, like, it's going to be players like you in chat where you're like, I don't want to do this because it's not fun. Well, obviously you don't want to do it because it's not fun because it's not set up in a good way, right? It's not set up in a way to where you are incentivized to try your absolute best. Like, yeah, for the first couple months you want to try your absolute best because you want to not be in chromium or bronzium or carbonite or whatever. You want to climb up to a rhodium and then break your way into Kyber and then get to Kyber 3 or wherever the maximum threshold for whatever GP you are. But at a certain point, you have to be like, well, if I want to actually make it to Kyber 1, right? If that's the goal, like for me, like if I actually wanted to make it to Kyber 1 as fast as possible without spending money, I would sandbag a lot of my GAC matches to maximize the total number of wins, to maximize the total number of crystals, to maximize the total number of Gear 12 plus pieces because I can't really get them anywhere else because the gear economy is dog shit, right? To maximize the number of relic characters, to maximize the number of, you know, these teams that I can fill out, right? Because there's a couple of characters I'd love to have a relic triumvirate team. I'd love to have a relic EP. I'd love to have a relic, you know, full Iden team. I'd love to relic my Bad Batch. I'd love to relic my BAM. I'd love to finish my JML Rex, maybe pick up a third Galactic Legend. And if my goal is to get to Kyber 1 as fast as humanly possible without spending, I have to purposely plan out sacrificing wins and just giving wins to my opponent to get to that point faster, which puts you in conflict with the two main things that people want to accomplish. People want to accomplish getting fat Dubberooskis, and people want to accomplish climbing the leaderboards as fast as possible. But those two things cannot happen at the same time. They're literally impossible. It's impossible for those things to happen at the same time because of the way that they've set up the system. The amount of times I've beaten I don't know how many dead horses I can beat. Apparently, like PETA has like a kill on sight order for the amount of dead horses that I've been beating about a bracket system. But I don't know. I just need to eat more rice and get on with my life because I feel you, Mr. Robert. I feel you. It fucking sucks. But that's the game that we have decided to play, and that's the direction that Capital Games decided to take, the only fun game mode in the game. Can we hope that they will either alleviate the gear crunch so we don't have to care about winning as much as possible, or return to some sort of skill-based matchmaking? Let's hope. But yeah.